Hi there, and welcome to Easy Peasy English, the podcast where we make English feel simple, natural, and something you can enjoy every day. I'm Christ, and I'm so happy you're here. This is a safe space made just for you, the learners out there who want to feel more confident in English, one small step at a time. Maybe you're learning English for your job, your studies, your travels, or maybe you just want to connect with more people around the world. Whatever your reason, I want you to know, you belong here. Here on Easy Peasy English, we don't worry about grammar tests or long vocabulary lists. We don't chase perfection. We focus on something deeper, your mindset, your motivation, and your real everyday experiences as a language learner. Each episode is like a quiet conversation with a friend. I speak slowly, clearly, and naturally, so you can relax, follow along, and feel supported. No pressure. Just real talk in real English. This podcast is about more than just words. It's about feelings. It's about self-belief. And it's about those little moments, when something finally clicks, when you say a sentence with confidence, or when you realize, hey, I understood that. Learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up. It's about trying. It's about being proud of your progress, no matter how small it feels. And that brings me to today's topic: you don't need to be perfect to start. If you've ever waited to speak because you were scared of making mistakes. If you've ever thought, I'll try when I feel more ready. If you've been holding yourself back because you think your English isn't good enough yet, then today's episode is for you. We're going to talk about where that fear comes from, how comparison can slow you down, and why starting, imperfectly, is the most powerful step you can take. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to begin. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's explore this together. Ready? Let's begin. Have you ever held back from speaking English because you were afraid of making a mistake? If so, you're not alone. Many learners feel this way. They believe they need to speak perfectly, no grammar errors, no accent, no hesitation, before they can open their mouths. But let me tell you something important: perfection is not the goal. Progress is. When you wait until you're perfect, you're waiting forever. Because no one, not even native speakers, is perfect. We all make mistakes. I've spoken to so many English learners who say, I want to speak, but I'm not ready. They've been studying for months or even years, but still don't feel confident enough to have a simple conversation. The fear of saying something wrong is so strong, it keeps them silent. But here's the truth: the only way to become a confident speaker is to start speaking. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be brave enough to try. Even if your sentences aren't perfect. Even if you forget a word. Even if your accent is strong. None of that matters as much as you think. What really matters is communication, and the courage to keep going. Let's talk about a real example. One of my friends is from Brazil. She started learning English when she was 30 years old. At first, she was shy. She didn't want to speak because she thought her accent was too strong. But then she decided to change her mindset. She told herself, I don't need to sound like an American. I just need to be understood. And with that simple thought, she started speaking more. Her sentences weren't always perfect. But people understood her. And more importantly, she started to enjoy the process. Now, a few years later, she's working at an international company and speaks English every day. Not because she waited to be perfect, but because she started. We all have this idea in our heads of the perfect English speaker. Maybe it's someone who speaks fast, uses fancy vocabulary, and sounds like a movie character. But real communication isn't about being fancy. It's about being real. It's about expressing your thoughts, asking questions, sharing your ideas, even if your grammar isn't perfect. Another thing to remember, your English doesn't have to look like someone else's. Maybe your friend learns faster than you. Maybe they have better pronunciation. But that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. We all learn in different ways, at different speeds. And comparison will only slow you down. Focus on your own journey. Measure your progress by how far you've come, not by how far someone else is. Let's go back to the idea of children learning to talk. Babies don't wait to speak until they can say perfect sentences. They babble. They say one word at a time. They make lots of mistakes. But we celebrate every little step. Every mama, or ball, or bye-bye is exciting. No one laughs at a baby for getting things wrong. So why do we judge ourselves so harshly as adults? We need to give ourselves that same kindness. Learning takes time. Mistakes are part of the process. I once met a man from Vietnam who told me something that stayed with me. He said, "Every time I make a mistake in English, I think, that's a new lesson for me." I love that. Because instead of feeling embarrassed, he felt excited. A mistake wasn't something bad. It was a chance to grow. If we can think like that, if we can see every mistake as progress, we'll move forward much faster. Some learners think they need a perfect environment to start speaking. They say, "I'll start when I live abroad." Or, "I'll start when I finish this course." But the truth is, you already have everything you need. If you have a phone, you can record your voice. If you have the internet, you can join online groups. If you have a mirror, you can practice speaking out loud. You don't need expensive tools. You need consistency and courage. Let me tell you about a woman I met from Mexico. She wanted to learn English, but she was very busy. She worked full-time and had 2 young kids. She didn't have time for classes. But every night, after her kids went to sleep, she watched one short video in English. Just 10 minutes a day. Sometimes she repeated what she heard. Sometimes she wrote down new words. It wasn't a lot. But she did it every single day. And after 1 year, her English had improved more than some people who studied for hours but didn't stay consistent. Why? Because she showed up every day. And that made the difference. You don't need hours of study. You don't need to live in London or New York. What you need is this: show up. Every day. Even for 5 minutes. Watch a video. Read a short article. Speak to yourself in English. Send a message to a friend. That small action, repeated over time, creates powerful results. Let's be honest, some days will be hard. Some days you won't feel motivated. You might think, "I'm not improving," or "this is too hard." That's normal. We all feel like that sometimes. But here's a secret: those hard days are where growth happens. When you keep going, even when it's tough, you're building a strong mindset. You're telling yourself, "I can do this." And that mindset is more important than perfect grammar or pronunciation. You're not just learning English. You're building confidence. You're learning patience. You're developing discipline. These are life skills, not just language skills. And every time you choose to keep going, even when it's not perfect, you're proving to yourself that you are capable. Let's explore another idea: the power of small wins. A lot of learners think that improvement means big achievements, like passing a difficult test or having a full conversation with a native speaker. But those big moments don't come every day. What does happen every day are small wins. And they are just as important. A small win might be understanding a line in an English movie without subtitles. Or learning how to pronounce a new word correctly. Or replying to a message in English without using Google Translate. These moments might seem tiny, but they are signs that you're growing. They are like drops of water filling a glass. Over time, those drops add up, and one day, the glass is full. I once worked with a student named Sarah from Turkey. She used to write down every new word she heard in a notebook. One day, she told me, "I understood a joke in English today," and I laughed. That may not sound like a big deal, but it was a turning point for her. Humor is one of the hardest things to understand in another language. But that little win gave her so much confidence. From that day on, she believed she could understand more. And she did. Sometimes we wait for someone else to tell us we're good enough. A teacher, a native speaker, a test score. But what if you didn't need permission? What if you decided right now, I'm already good enough to start? That decision, to believe in yourself, can change everything. Another important idea is to redefine what mistake means. In school, mistakes are marked with red pens. They feel like failure. But in real life, mistakes are part of learning. If you try to say, "I went to the store," and you accidentally say, "I go to the store yesterday," that's okay. The person probably still understands you. And now, your brain is learning what works and what doesn't. That's how improvement happens, through real experience, not through fear. Let's talk about accents for a moment. Many learners feel ashamed of their accents. They want to sound native. But here's the thing, accents are beautiful. They are part of your identity. They tell a story about where you're from and what languages you speak. And having an accent doesn't mean your English is bad. In fact, most English speakers in the world speak with an accent, because English is a global language. Think about this, if you meet someone from France, or Japan, or Argentina, and they speak to you in English, with an accent, do you judge them? Probably not. You respect them for trying. So why not show the same kindness to yourself? Let me give you a real example. I met a man from India who gave presentations in English at work. He had a strong accent, and sometimes he searched for words. But he was clear, passionate, and confident. People listened to him, not because he was perfect, but because he had something to say. That's what matters. Now let's talk about practice. Practice doesn't mean studying grammar rules for hours. It means using English in your real life. Speaking, writing, listening, reading, even just a little bit, every day. Think of it like exercise. If you go to the gym once a month for 4 hours, you won't see results. But if you do 20 minutes every day, you'll get stronger over time. I knew a guy named Tom from Korea who used a simple method. He spoke to himself in English while walking. Just 5 minutes a day. Describing what he saw, how he felt, what he planned to do. At first, he felt silly. But after 2 weeks, he noticed something. He wasn't searching for words as much. His brain was getting faster. He had created a habit, and that habit made a huge difference. Another learner I met, Anna from Ukraine, used to record voice messages in English and send them to her online pen pal. They both corrected each other kindly, and over time, their messages became longer and more natural. They weren't waiting for perfection. They were creating progress, one message at a time. Let's talk a bit about fear. Fear is one of the biggest blocks in language learning. Fear of being laughed at. Fear of looking stupid. Fear of failure. But here's a secret, most of that fear lives only in our heads. People aren't judging you as much as you think. Most of them admire you for trying. And the few who don't, they're not your people. You are brave. It takes courage to speak in another language. So instead of waiting until the fear goes away, which it won't, learn to speak with the fear. Let the fear come with you. Feel it, and speak anyway. That's real confidence. We're often told to be fluent. But what does fluency mean? Does it mean sounding like a native speaker? Speaking fast? Using big words? I don't think so. I think fluency means being able to express yourself. To share your thoughts and understand others. You can be fluent with simple sentences. You can be fluent with basic vocabulary. You don't need to sound like a textbook. If you can say, I went to the beach last weekend and it was so relaxing, that's fluency. If you can ask, what do you like to do in your free time? That's fluency. You're using English to connect. That's the goal. Sometimes we confuse perfection with progress. But they are not the same. You can speak perfectly, and say nothing interesting. You can speak with mistakes, and move people with your words. Don't chase perfection. Chase expression. Chase connection. Let's go deeper into something we all experience, comparison. Maybe you see other people speaking English confidently. They seem so fluent, so natural. Maybe you think, why can't I be like that? That feeling is normal. But comparison can be dangerous. It often makes us feel smaller, slower, and less smart, even when that's not true. The problem is, we only see the outside of someone else's journey. We see the result, not the practice, not the mistakes, not the long nights of study or the quiet fears they also felt. It's like watching a professional dancer and forgetting the 10 years of training behind that performance. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. You are on your own path. Think about this, you didn't start learning English at the same time as them. You don't have the same schedule, the same personality, the same goals. You are a different person, in a different life. So your journey will also look different. That's not a problem, that's what makes it yours. I once met two learners, Carlos from Brazil and Mai from Vietnam. Carlos loved listening to podcasts and repeating phrases out loud. He spoke slowly, but with confidence. Mai, on the other hand, preferred writing short stories in English and reading them aloud. Her writing was creative and thoughtful. Now, if Carlos compared himself to Mai, he might think, I'm not creative enough. And if Mai compared herself to Carlos, she might say, I don't speak as clearly. But both of them were growing, just in their own ways. That's why it's so important to measure your progress against your past self, not against other people. Ask yourself, can I say more than I could last year? Do I feel more comfortable reading an article now? Am I less nervous when I listen to someone speak English? These are signs of real growth. You don't need to be the best, you just need to be better than you were yesterday. Now let's explore the idea of showing up, even when you don't feel ready. Sometimes we wait for motivation to appear before we study or speak. But motivation doesn't always come first. Often, it comes after you take action. Imagine this, it's raining outside. You don't feel like running, but you put on your shoes and go for a short jog. After 5 minutes, you feel better. You're breathing deeply. You're glad you did it. Learning English is the same. Don't wait for the perfect time, or the perfect mood. Just start, and let the feeling catch up. I remember a student named Mina. Every morning, before work, she listened to a 5-minute English podcast while brushing her teeth. Just 5 minutes. But she did it every day, and after 3 months, she said, "Now I understand more when I watch Netflix in English." That's the power of showing up, not once or twice, but again and again. Let's talk about confidence now. Confidence doesn't mean never being afraid. It means doing something despite the fear. The more you try, the more you build evidence that you can handle it. And that's what makes you stronger. For example, let's say you join an English conversation club online. The first time, you're nervous. You don't speak much. That's okay. The second time, you say a few sentences. The third time, you ask a question. And suddenly, after 10 times, you're laughing, sharing ideas, and enjoying the process. That's not magic. That's confidence built through repetition. And guess what? Confidence is contagious. When you show up, even with mistakes, you inspire others. You might think, "But I'm just a learner." No, you are an example. Someone else is watching you and thinking, "If they can do it, maybe I can too." Let's shift to a new idea, your reason why. Why do you want to learn English? For work, travel, meeting new people, watching movies without subtitles. Whatever your reason is, it's personal. It's powerful. And it matters. Sometimes we forget our why and focus only on the struggle. But when you remember why you started, it gives you energy. It helps you stay patient. So write it down. Put it somewhere you can see it. And when things feel hard, look at it. That reason is your compass. It will guide you. Here's a quick story. My friend Jacob from Germany wanted to learn English because his grandmother loved American jazz music. She didn't speak English, but she loved the rhythm and sound. Jacob started learning just so he could translate the lyrics for her. He even wrote the English lyrics on paper and sang them to her. That motivation was pure love, and it kept him going. Maybe your reason is simple: you want to feel free in another language. You want to be able to travel, to connect, to understand. That's enough. Your why doesn't have to be big. It just has to be real. Another important part of this journey is making it fun. Learning doesn't have to feel like school. You can watch YouTubers you like. Listen to music. Read about topics that interest you. Make silly videos. Join games. Laugh at your mistakes. When you enjoy the process, you keep going. Let's be honest, some days will be hard. You'll forget words. You'll feel stuck. You'll want to quit, but if you find joy in learning, even a little, you'll keep coming back. There's a Japanese phrase, fall down 7 times, get up 8. That's what learning a language is like. You will fall. But every time you get up, you become stronger. You become a little more fearless. A little more free. Let's talk about another fear many learners face, the fear of making mistakes. This fear can be very strong. You don't want to sound silly. You don't want people to laugh or judge you. Maybe you worry that your grammar isn't perfect, or your pronunciation is not native enough. So, what happens? You stay silent. You wait. You hide. But here's the truth: if you want to improve, you have to make mistakes. In fact, making mistakes is not just okay, it's necessary. No one learns a language without them. Not one person. Think about how babies learn their first words. They say things the wrong way all the time. But no one laughs at them. We just smile and say, "Good try." Then they try again. And again. And that's how they learn. Why should it be different for adults? I had a student named Elif from Turkey. She was very quiet in class. She always listened but never spoke. One day, I asked her why. She said, "I'm afraid I will say something wrong." I told her, "That's how we all learn. Please say it wrong. Let's say it wrong together." And slowly, she started speaking. Her sentences weren't perfect, but they were full of heart. And now, she gives presentations in English at her company. All because she was brave enough to make mistakes. Sometimes, we think we need to speak perfectly before we open our mouths. But perfection is not the goal, communication is. Can you get your message across? Can people understand you? If the answer is yes, then you're already doing great. Let me tell you another story. A friend of mine named Juan, from Colombia, once told me how embarrassed he felt the first time he spoke English in front of strangers. He said, "I said, he, instead of she, and they laughed." But later, he realized they weren't laughing at him, they were just surprised. They didn't mean to hurt his feelings. And guess what? Now he speaks English with confidence, even with small mistakes. Because he learned not to take things too personally. He learned to keep going. We have to stop thinking of mistakes as failures. They are feedback. They are small signs saying, "You're moving forward." When you ride a bike, you fall. When you play a new song on the guitar, you miss notes. So why should English be different? Now let's talk about celebrating progress, even small wins. Sometimes we focus too much on what we can't do, and we forget how far we've come. Maybe last year you couldn't understand a podcast without subtitles, but now you can. Maybe last week you were too scared to order food in English, but today you tried. That's progress. That's worth celebrating. Keep a journal of your wins. Write down your small victories. Today I spoke to a tourist in English. I watched a movie without translating everything. I wrote a message in English and someone understood me. These things are huge. They show that you're learning, that you're growing. And let's not forget about daily habits. Your habits matter more than your talent. You don't need to study for hours every day. Even 10 to 15 minutes of focused, regular practice can make a big difference. It's about showing up again and again, even when it's not exciting. That's where the real progress happens. For example, you could read one short article a day. Watch one video with subtitles. Write one sentence in English about your day. Speak one short message to a friend. Learn one new word and use it in a sentence. These things seem small. But they add up. If you do them daily, you'll be shocked at how much better you get in 3 months, 6 months, a year. Let me tell you about Hannah from South Korea. She had no time, a full-time job, 2 kids, and many responsibilities. But every night before bed, she would read one article on her phone in English. Just 5 minutes. After a year, she could read English news comfortably. She didn't take a big course. She didn't move to a new country. She just read every night. That's consistency. Now let's touch on something important, learning styles. Everyone learns differently. Some people learn best by listening. Others learn best by writing. Some like to repeat phrases. Others enjoy chatting with friends. Find what works for you, and do more of it. Don't force yourself to learn the way someone else does. Just because your friend loves grammar books doesn't mean you have to. Maybe you prefer songs or games or writing stories. That's fine. There is no one right way to learn. The best way is the one that keeps you moving forward. Also, don't be afraid to ask for help. Join a community. Find a study buddy. Talk to people online who are learning just like you. Learning together makes the journey easier and more fun. I know a group of learners who started a small Telegram group. They just practiced English together, every day. They shared jokes, asked questions, helped each other with vocabulary. After 6 months, not only had their English improved, they had also become good friends. Language is about connection. So don't try to do it all alone. Let's finish this part with one final message: you are doing better than you think. Maybe you're not fluent yet. Maybe you still struggle. But you're here. You're reading, listening, trying. That means something. That's the beginning of something powerful. You don't need perfect grammar to speak. You don't need a perfect accent to connect. You don't need to wait. You can start today, right where you are, with what you have. And if you do that, if you take a small step today, even if it's messy, even if it's slow, you've already started something powerful. You don't need to be fluent. You don't need to say every word right. You just need to begin. And the truth is, that beginning is already a win. You listened to this episode. You gave your time and attention to English today. That's not small. That's huge. And honestly, that's what I want for you. Not perfection. Not pressure. Just that simple, strong feeling: I showed up. I tried. I started. So thank you for being here with me today. I hope this episode reminded you that you don't need to wait until you're ready. You are already ready enough. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to keep moving. Bit by bit. Day by day. Even listening to this podcast is a step forward. And you should feel proud of that. If today's episode gave you something helpful, a little boost of courage, a new way of thinking, or just a moment of calm, then come back again next time. We'll keep walking this journey together, with kindness, honesty, and small steps forward. Until then, take care, be patient with yourself, and remember, fluent English isn't a finish line. It's a process. A path. And it starts with you. You've already started. And that's more than enough. See you next time on Easy Peasy English.